Hi cuties! So today I wanted to talk about audiobooks because that's what I mostly read nowadays. If you guys don't know, I have a full-time job out of here, and in the first 3 hours of said job, I can listen to whatever I want in one earbud for safety, but I can still listen to stuff. So I end up listening to audiobooks, and I listen to most of my audiobooks now at 1.75 speed or 2, depending on the narrator. Some people are like, why? How do you read it that fast? And it's like, I trained, okay? You gradually get yourself to that point. So if you're not reading as fast as me or anything, that's okay. I used to think reading at twice the speed was absolutely insane, but now my ears work that way. So today I wanted to talk about my top 10 favorite audiobooks that I would recommend to other people to read because they're just really good productions of it, and they're great stories and really had me completely involved in the story at all times. There was not a lot of drifting off and thinking of other things, because sometimes that happens to me. If it's not a fully engaging audiobook, I can sometimes, drift away and then come back and go, wait, what happened? It doesn't matter. Some of these are my favorites because the narrator is just really good. Some of them have some extra elements put in to make it this full-fledged, immersive production. Now I'm gonna do, 1 through 10 of this. They're not necessarily ranked accordingly, but some of them that I'll talk about last are probably my top favorites, but all of them have been at least 4 or 5 star read for me, and their audiobook has been one that I still can remember how it sounded and how it felt to be reading that book. And for anybody out there who's gonna slam on audiobooks is still reading, okay? None of that snobbiness, okay? Listening to an audiobook is reading a book. So without further ado, we're gonna start off with number 10, which isn't like the worst one. Again, all of these are amazing. So number 10 is Stay Gold by Toby McSmith. It is about a transgender boy who transfers to a new school, and he's really trying to keep his identity kind of secret. He just wants to be, seen as a man. He doesn't want his transness to affect how everybody sees him. He just wants to be accepted for who he is. And while he has friends that are very out and proud, it's a school in, I believe, Texas, so it's not exactly the most welcoming community where he has moved to, and he wants to just, get through high school. But he does fall kind of head over heels for this, cheerleader girl who is totally into him, but she's also dealing with her own issues, and it's their cute kind of romantic story while also being very heavy. There is some violence, there are thoughts of suicide in this, so trigger warnings for that. But for the audiobook itself, it is narrated by 2 narrators, and the thing that makes this so good is that it is an actual non-binary actor who is narrating Pony's part. I almost forgot the name of the character. It's Pony. So reading Pony is Theo Germain, who is an actor. They're non-binary. They use they, them pronouns. It was just more authentic hearing that in the audiobook instead of, a straight cisgender man reading this trans role when we have actors who can do that. So I really appreciated that. I thought it was very authentic. And then the other narrator is Phoebe Stroll, which she did a really good job. There wasn't really anything, outstanding about her performance. I just think that, she did a really good job, and her and Theo's shared narration worked really well. The audiobook is pretty short. It's only about 9 hours long, so it was a very quick read. I think I read it in like a day or 2 because I was reading at such a fast speed. I think I might have done it in one day. It's very quick. It's a very powerful story. It's more voices that we need to be hearing, and I just really enjoyed this story. It was very cute. It was very heart-wrenching at times. It was just so real in the ups and downs of life, especially high school life. I just loved it, so I recommend definitely picking up that one if that interests you. Next up is The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody. This book is about 11 hours long, and it is narrated by Amy McFadden. The thing about this book and its narrator, so I don't know much about Amy McFadden, but she has narrated a few books that I have listened to, and every single one she's done is so good. She has a really good, just a really amazing voice that she can bring to multiple characters, and this story in particular is very emotional. It is about a girl who has lost her best friend in a car accident. So it is almost a year later. It's one day. It's New Year's Eve. Her best friend died on New Year's Day the previous year. And she is stuck at Denver International Airport. And there's a horrible blizzard going on, so all the flights are grounded, and she cannot be there when the next day strikes. She suffers from OCD ever since that, from the trauma of losing her best friend, and she needs to be home when the next year starts because she can't handle the fact that now it'll be a year since her friend is gone. She also imagines her best friend talking with her and being with her throughout the story. All the while she has met this boy who they accidentally swap phones at one point, and then she meets another young boy. She pretends to be his guardian or his older sister, but he's this brilliant child, you know, genius child that is researching the conspiracies of DIA, because there are some good conspiracies about DIA. And so it's just woven with this big cast of characters, but it's all centralized on our main character, which Amy McFadden reads, and her voice, her struggle, her emulation of this character is just so good. It's the book that actually made me cry. I don't actually cry a lot during books. It is such a good read, and I highly recommend it if you want a really hard-hitting story with some mental illness representation in it and some fantastic writing. Next up is the first book in the Lady Janie series, My Lady Jane, by Cynthia Han, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This book is about 14 hours long, and it is a wild ride. It's so freaking fun. So if you need a cheerful, hilarious bashing of historical fiction, here you go. It deals with shapeshifters and the story of Lady Jane Grey, who was the queen for 7 days, I think it's 7 days, I can't remember. It's so funny, it's so entertaining. It is my favorite of the Lady Janies so far. I am in the middle of reading My Calamity Jane right now, and it's pretty darn good, but I absolutely love this book. It is narrated by Katherine Kellgren, who is just so good at doing this. It's so humorous. Her voice just works for every single character. It works for the hilarity that happens, for the craziness that happens in it. She's just so good at this, and I kind of wish she had narrated all of the series. All of them are narrated by different narrators, I believe. I don't think she narrated My Plain Jane. She definitely is not the narrator for My Calamity Jane, but still good. My Lady Jane. If you guys want a really fun read, even though it's 14 hours long, you go real fast. It's just so good. If you need something to laugh and be happy about and cheerful, it's great. It ties in, you know, the history of the period while also bringing in modern elements. Kind of the phrasing that they use is just, it's a way to bring history back to life in our modern age. It can be somewhat blasphemous of history, but the authors acknowledge that, and they don't care. This is a much more fun take on history and historical fiction, so if you're not really a historical fiction person, this may be the style that gets you into that genre, at least having a more humorous take on the genre. Next up is the entirety of the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. We've got Cinder, Scarlet, Crest, Winter, and also Fairest and Stars Above. They are all read by Rebecca Soler. Rebecca Soler is probably one of my favorite audiobook narrators now. I have read several books that she has narrated, and I love her voice. I would love for her to narrate my books. I think she could do Levin very, very well, and a lot of the other characters, because she's so good at having all these different voices that you never really lose track of whose voice she's using. It's just good. Oh my god. I think she's what made me love the Lunar Chronicles more than if I had physically read them, because there are some problems with the Lunar Chronicles, but the way that Rebecca Soler reads it, chef's kiss. It's so good. I don't know how she does it. I dream of being that good a voice actor, but damn, girl, damn. If you find any book that is narrated by Rebecca Soler, just pick it up. It's gonna be great because she's a great narrator no matter. I think she also narrated Caraval, and I've read the first 2 books in Caraval now. Still amazing. Next up is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I didn't mention The Hate You Give because I do think the narrator, I don't know if they share the same narrator, but On the Come Up is meant to be listened to because our main character, Bree, is a rapper. She's an aspiring rapper, so it's really nice to get the actual lyrics in a form that's, you know, meant to be heard and not just read, so you get a little bit more of the power from it. This book is about 10 hours long, and it's read by Bonnie Turbin, and I think she just does such a good job of bringing Bree's voice to life. And it's a great story anyway. I mean, all of Angie Thomas's books are just so good and so relevant right now, but listening to it as an audiobook brings it a little bit more because it's fully engrossed in the rap scene, in the underground rap scene. So listening to it is going to be a better medium for this book anyway, because it's so involved with music. And I really enjoyed it. I still can hear the song on the come up, which Bree writes, and it's still in my brain all the time. Sometimes I just hear it randomly. So this is a book that's really stuck in my brain. It's just great. It's just absolutely great. And y'all should check it out as an audiobook. If you've already read the physical book, it's great, but read it again as an audiobook. There's a little bit more of a depth to it. There's another level to this book when you listen to it, I think. Number 5, Leora Sophie would probably kill me if I did not mention this book, but that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. So this book is about 12 hours long, and it's read by Ramon de Ocampo, and it's a dual POV, so Ramon does both the POVs of the President of the United States' son and the Prince of Wales, Henry, Prince of Wales. It's so good. I don't know how to talk about this book without like freaking out a little bit because it's so fun. It's so good. It's the exact type of romance you want between two characters. It's a plus that we get some bisexual rep and gay representation in royalty. So amazing. The depth of these characters is just so good. They're so believable, even though they're in these positions in life that put them in kind of, that upper class, that fantastical, they have money, they have resources, fine. But Alex Claremont Diaz, who is the son of the president, a female president, by the way, also amazing. When can we get into this timeline? I would like to live in the timeline of Red, White, and Royal Blue. Can I go there in that dimension? How do I get through there? That'd be great. So Alex is also Latinx. His dad is Latinx and his mom is white. And that's another great representation. Like, I think especially in the world of politics and stuff, the Latinx community does not get proper representation. And the fact that Alex really wants to be in the political sphere, he's really fighting for it, studying so that one day he can be in politics. He's very involved in a lot of things, and that's just such an interesting characterization of him because he's also, kind of a party boy. He's also in a few scandals and stuff, but he has this passion in him. And then you have Henry, who is the softest boy. My goodness. He's closeted because, he's royalty, and that just doesn't fly, apparently, in royalty. Well, you'll have to read the book to see how it flies. But it's an enemies to lovers trope, which is my trope. The way that Ramon reads this, you really hear, again, very good at distinguishing between the two characters because we switch POVs a lot. There are beautiful letters that are written. There are poems that are written in this, and his voice is so entrancing. It's so immersive. It's so believable when things shift from being serious to being funny to being dramatic. It's so good. Like, I could really see this being a movie. The way that he reads it, it was completely visual from front to back. It was the best, one of the best books that I've listened to. It's one that we want to listen to on repeat because it's just that good. But everyone wants to read it on my Libby app, so I have to just buy the audiobook so I can just listen to all the parts that I want to, or just flip through all the pages and remember his voice because it's very easy to remember his voice. So read that book, guys. Number 4 is a book that you would think needs a gigantic cast, because it is a gigantic cast of characters, but oh no, it is one narrator doing all of these voices. And I don't know how she did it. But this is The Diviners by Libba Bray. The first book in this is 18 hours long. They're very big books, which is why audiobook, great. But it is read by January Lavoie. January Lavoie is not a real human being, I think. I think she is a shapeshifter because I don't know how she is able to read the voice of a young, white, teenage radio star and this super demonic, evil bad guy, at least in the first book, where it sounds like they're completely different people. Not to mention, you have your Southern gay man, you have your black poet, you have your sultry dancer singer, and you've got Mr. America almost, and swindling kind of not newsy, but very, 1910s, 1920s character who is that stereotypical voice that you hear in like old documentaries from that time. She does all of these voices. All of them. I don't know how. How did she make that happen? Does she have a different set of vocal cords that she can just like program to be that? And then that? And then that? How? How does she do it? I would like to know. Can you just like call me January Lavoie and give me some lessons? That would be really, really nice. Thank you. Some of the top 3. Not necessarily the top 3, but they're definitely ones that I absolutely love. And this next one is anyone talking about audiobooks is going to mention this book, and that is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is a full cast book, so let me read off the names for you. We've got Dan Bittner, Fred Berman, Gabriel Zachman, and Rebecca Soler. This book is only 8 hours long. It is best to listen to this as an audiobook because half of this book is a podcast. So we have this podcaster who is investigating this kind of disappearance of these 2 girls and what happened to Sadie. And the other half of it is Sadie's journey in hunting down the man that killed her little sister. And it's brutal, it is intense, but it is so immersive because you have this full cast, you have different settings of recording so it sounds like it's on a podcast, you have it so it sounds like he's interviewing live, and then you have the full narration of Sadie's story. So it works so well as an audiobook. It's meant to be an audiobook. I don't know how else to tell you that it should be an audiobook because it's one of the best audiobooks out there in my opinion, and in a lot of other booktubers' opinions. So there you go. Number 2 is a book I finished reading not long ago. I just finished its sequel, and that is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This book is 18 hours long and is read by Steve West. Steve West has the storyteller voice. I don't know what it is about him, but I feel like I was hypnotized while I read this book. On top of that, there's music in this between each of the parts. There's some really cool music that is added to this that really makes you feel like you're watching it or listening to it as like a radio show, or you are watching it. I honestly think Strange the Dreamer should be adapted to like the next HBO big series. It's so big and expansive and is rich and just visually dynamic. It should be on TV. It should be on TV. I don't think it should be a movie because there's so much in it. It should be a TV series. And there's a lot more that needs to happen for this series, Laini Taylor. So what's this joke about it being a duology? I don't think that it's a duology at all. I think it's like a 15,000 book series. So there you go. But Steve West is so good. He's such a rich voice that brings Laszlo Strange and all these other characters. Like, he goes from being Laszlo Strange, who is this kind of awkward young man who is really coming into his own, to being Minya, who is like a 6-year-old demigod crazy child and does her voice so freaking well. I want to see this live because I want to see him actually reading this live. That's what I want to see. I don't actually need an HBO series of it. I just need to watch him read this book and perform it. Because damn. And finally, I've talked about this book before, and it's a book that I read a couple years ago now, almost. Maybe just last year. Maybe I just read it last year. I don't remember. But, because I didn't actually start really reading audiobooks until last year. But this is And the Trees Crept In by Dawn Kurtagich. It is about 10 hours long, and it is read by Polly Lee. If you want a creepy book in time for spoopy time, read this book. This book. Okay. The reason this book is so good is not just because of the voice actress being amazing. Her voice is a little bit deeper, and I don't know what area of the UK it is, but it's a very rich accent that I didn't expect. Like, if I read the book, that's not the accent I would have expected, but it works really well for the characters. And the thing about it is it's meant to be creepy. There are sound effects happening all throughout it. There's a point where you read these burned book pages where in the text itself, you'll see some highlighted words that are a little bit bigger, and that's kind of reading on a loop in this creepy whisper in the background while the rest of the journal entry is being read. So there's this layering of voices to make it fully immersive and super creepy. So if you want to get spooked out and creeped out by this, check this book out. I mean, just in the way she reads it, there's a point where, there's a lot of points actually, where she says the word creek, and the way she reads it, it's so creepy. It's just this creak. I can't do it right. She does it way better. But, oh, it's so good. I read this book a long time ago now. I still think about it. I can still hear it in my brain. I can still hear it. It still creeps me out. And I really want to read the other book that I have waiting. It's called The Dead House. I think I'll probably get to it in October because I need another good spooky read in October time. It's creepy. Creepy book. Not necessarily the best book I've ever read, because like the ending is a little bit okay, but dang creepy. Dang creepy. Okay, guys, read it. Read that book. And there you go. Those are the top 10 audiobooks that I have listened to. I'll probably make another one of these once I finish, out the year and have a lot more audiobooks to talk about. But those are the top 10 that I love. I still think about them all the time. I recommend them all the time. So there you go. And if you guys don't know what apps to be using, I use library apps as a way to support my local libraries, especially with COVID and people not being allowed to go into these libraries. Now they're opening up again, but it was a way to support them while they were still closed. I use the Libby app mostly. That's kind of the best one that I've had so far. And also Hoopla. Hoopla is okay. I think it's just my library that I have is not the greatest on Hoopla, but it is good on Libby. So it depends on your library. You just need a library card. And most of the time you can just buy a library card online. So, and I like supporting my libraries. What's this accent coming out of me right now? I don't know. Anyway, what audiobooks do you guys like? Put them in the comments below. I would love some more recommendations because I am listening to audiobooks all of the time. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below or on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. And I'll see you next time, cuties. Bye! And that is... shit, I forgot. I forgot who wrote it. Who wrote it? Who wrote it? I forgot who wrote it.